guys. Hi. As always, if anybody has anything they'd like discussed, feel free to put it in the chat and I will get that open. But otherwise, why don't we just arrive in the room? Give yourself a chance to just show up for this moment. Let yourself slow way down. If you can slow way down, then you can perceive this moment. That means no part of you is trying to push forward or pull backwards. You're just timeless. Expanding out into eternity. For anyone new coming in, if there's anything you want to talk about, feel free to put it in the chat. Right now, we're just getting ourselves into this moment. I can't tell if there are any new people in here tonight. I don't recognize all the tags. Why don't we go into meditation for a little while? So if there is anybody new in here tonight, the way we meditate is we place our attention right here at the forehead and crown. You keep your eyes open because you live with your eyes open. And from that place, you just begin to breathe. It helps if you can see the entire room at once, so that you're not hard focusing on any one thing. It helps if you can hear all the sounds at once. You just become aware of everything present in this moment, but without an intention to do anything to it, with it, or about it. You just sit in this moment aware of your breath. And when the mind comes in to try and get you to focus elsewhere, you just return to the breath. So let's do that for a little while and then we'll talk. And if there are any questions about that, you can put them in the chat. What if you just let everything be exactly the way it is? Not a thing to change. Even the bad feelings in your body, just accept them. Let them express themselves. Don't play with them. Don't push them away. Just give it all its space. Do that right now and just see what you notice. Can you feel how when you do that, it ceases to be a problem? When you push it away, it's glued to you. When you let it be, it lets you be. And as it does that, you can shift your attention away from it. Onto the forehead and crown. Onto the breath. Why does that work? It works because you are living in an illusion of duality, made up of pairs of opposites. A spiritual warrior knows how to work with opposites. It all starts with one thing. And that one thing splits into two. A projective force, and then a restrictive force to contain that projective force and shape it into form. But that initial split is the beginning of a series of opposites that eventually become the world that you live in, the stories that live inside your head. It's all the one thing. But as that one light just passes through this prism, everything splits into this multifarious universe of apparent opposites. So if you want something to leave you alone, you actually have to give it space to be itself. If you push it away, you're going to attract its opposite. It's going to cling to you because it's just the other side of the same coin. If you hold your hand under cold water, eventually it starts to burn as if it's hot. The line between those two things becomes indistinguishable. That's even reflected in your nervous system. If you're in a relationship and you really, really want somebody to want to be with you, and so you're always pulling on them and trying to insist that they be closer to you, what does it do? It makes them run away, doesn't it? I see your question, Amrita. We will definitely address that. Thank you. The reason you have most of the things in your life is because of what you resist. If you resist getting close to dirt, you're going to have dirt in your house. If you have a good relationship with dirt where you can get right up to it and work with it, you can have a clean house. I think some of the most powerful opposites come surrounding that initial split, that projective force and that restrictive shaping force. The entire world thinks about it the wrong way. You know, I think we all look up and think, oh, we want to feel more power, right? We want more power in our lives. And so we think what we want is that projective force. We reach right for the power. When really what we need to feel more powerful is to master the restrictive force. The shape that power is going to fill. The reason people don't feel powerful is because they're not containing the power that is always flowing. They're leaking. Squandering energy with needless emotions, needless resistances. They don't even know why they're doing it half the time. And they call out for more water when they really need to call out for something to plug up the holes so the water stops leaking. If you can become disciplined, if you can tighten up the ship, then power flows through it and is contained and can do amazing things. The power can get in there and evolve the structure. But power without the structure, there's nothing to contain it. It just dissipates. So more power isn't going to make you feel more powerful. More structure is going to make you feel more powerful. And the way life works, if you don't actually bring that challenge on yourself, life will do it for you. You won't call it structure, you'll call it challenge. You'll go through a period of time where nothing's working out and everything just feels really difficult. And what that'll do is it'll actually change your structure. You'll have to become something more contained in order to survive it. And after it's passed, you'll feel more powerful. Not because more power is flowing, but because more power is contained. You see that? It's a world of opposites, a split. It's an illusion, really. But it feels real enough. So you have to wake up to that. When there's something you really, really want to have, that just never seems to come, ask yourself, what have I not been willing to do? There'll be some aspect of its opposite that you've been unwilling to deal with. And then step up and deal with it. So that you can show yourself. I pretty much never miss this class. It's been years and years and years. Because I know how important it is to have that power well contained in your spiritual life. You have to set a boundary somewhere to contain what's flowing through, especially if you're going to teach people. That commitment, that structure, that discipline, but really it feels more just like a structure. That's actually what makes courses like this special. Surely you guys have noticed that everything's a slippery slope in the spiritual world, right? If you don't come for a couple of weeks, you start to forget why you even care. The power's leaking out of the bucket. As a teacher, it's my job to keep that flame lit so that when yours goes out, there's still a candle lit. I can light your candle off of mine. So if I have COVID, I show up. If my father's actively dying, I show up. If I'm on vacation, I show up. What's sacred to you? Whatever's sacred to you, you need to actually contain the power flowing through it. Find your discipline within it, and that discipline will eventually feel like freedom. I was teaching another class today, and we were talking about the restrictive force of a piano. You know, a piano has all these different keys on it, and every key is narrowly held to a very tight range of vibration, so that on a properly tuned piano, a middle C is a middle C. An E flat is an E flat. It's really quite rigid, quite imprisoned. And yet that structure, that prison, is what makes it possible for someone to take the whole mess of human emotions and turn it into music, put it on a page, and then die. And then we can sit around a piano and literally hear and feel their feeling through that piano. Do you see that rigidity becomes flexibility? Whereas if things are too flexible, if the notes decided to stop holding themselves to their respective vibrations, then nothing would work. It would actually become too rigid to express the feelings of the composer. But because it embraces that rigidity, it can actually express all these flexible feelings: grief, joy, exuberance, seduction, anything. One thing always leads to its opposite. So that's something I'd like you guys to start kind of working with. I'd like you to start looking at your life through that lens. What do you hold sacred? Pick something. And then assess through that lens. How much power is contained in the current structure? And what am I not showing up for that would allow that power to really be contained? If you can become unyielding, relentless in what you're willing to do to honor that thing that's sacred to you, then it can grow in ways that are nuanced and flexible. It can evolve. But you have to become a disciplined instrument for that to happen. One of the greatest tools is attention. But most people, their attention is scattered all throughout their inner universe. So we train you to bring your attention back to this moment. When you're working with something that is sacred to you, you need your full attention in that moment. In spiritual life, we talk about the pathway from contemplation to concentration to meditation, and then to samadhi, to union. Contemplation, you're just kind of thinking about things, but it's not very focused. It's kind of circular, and you're sort of talking to yourself in your head, but at least kind of surrounding a topic. Concentration, you find one aspect of that to give your attention to, and you're holding it there. Meditation is like concentration, but then you are shifting more into abiding there, making it your home, so that it's sustainable. But that concentration actually leads you there. That rigidity leads you to the freedom to just let go into your chosen point of focus. I'm sure most of you have experienced that in this class at some point, where you don't have to hold your mind still anymore. You just don't play with anything else. And you can relax in that space. And as you do, power starts to fill the battery. And if you stay there long enough, samadhi happens, union happens. You are released from the prison of life. You spend some time waking back up to what you really are. But everything in life is like that. So I want you to start paying attention to that. Okay, so Amrita asked a question saying, where does the spiritual journey lead to? Is there a destination or a purpose? Excellent question. There are many ways to answer that. The real answer is that all roads lead to the same place, which is nowhere. Every road leads to the same place, which is essentially nowhere. I mean, you've seen that, right? Anything you try and attain, the second you get it, a new attainment just opens up 3 miles down the road. And that just kind of goes on and on and on. The beauty of the spiritual path, however, is that on that road to nowhere, you wake up to the fact that there's nowhere to go. You wake up to the fact that there is no destination. There isn't really even a purpose. And in realizing that, you are free. Free to do what? Free to be exactly what you are. We talk about it all the time as I'm trying to get you into the meditative state. I say things to you like nothing to achieve, nothing to understand, nowhere to go. And so you call off the search. And in calling off the search, you arrive in this moment. And by arriving in this moment, all the blocks in your energy start working themselves out. And so it has beneficial effects on your health and on your mind and on your intelligence. But still, all those things are leading nowhere. Your brain is going to rot in the ground unless you're cremated. Everything you've built will fall into decay. The only point of doing any of it is to get it out of your system so that you can stop reaching for it and finally wake up. And it does take doing it. You know, even when you know it doesn't matter and it's not real, if there's an unresolved energy in you of something that you know you need to experience in the story, you do have to actually find a way to experience it, to build it. And in doing so, you learn how to work with those opposites. You learn how to work with the dream time of life. And then at some point, like you guys, you stumble upon teachers or teachings that wake you up to that. But waking up to that just brings you into a moment where you can actually begin experiencing what you really are. There are special changes that happen to the story of life the more you do that. Certain powers and abilities start to wake up. But it's funny how quickly even those just become not that important. You know? Maybe you learn how to control the weather. You call down some hailstorms, you allay some storms. And then after a while, it's like, well, what am I getting out of manipulating weather? Except downed power lines. You find people that you can heal, sometimes just with an intention. But then, you know, they were hurting in that way for a reason. There was an unlearned lesson causing that energy to get stuck. And so you watch as the thing you're trying to heal gets healed, and then the block just moves to a different place in their body and throws them out of balance in a different way. And so you start to kind of let go of that too. Where you really end up after all of it is a place of non-manipulation. A place where you can just be. Now, to the person that's asleep, that sounds boring or non-productive. But the truth is, those are just stories in and of themselves. We're not talking about sitting and being bored or sitting and lacking in productivity. We're talking about letting go of the story of lack and just being present with everything right in front of you. And then in full knowledge of that, interacting with the illusion, interacting with people still living in the illusion, stepping into stories of your own so that you can continue building in the world of illusion, in full knowledge that it's going nowhere, but that it might attract some people who are ready to wake up. And there's many different levels of that. You know, there's the level of like teaching a spiritual class, but there's also just the level of stepping into the scientific world, for example, and just showing people how their thinking has been stuck and opening that up. You know, that happens in every field. Music, coding, anything. Bringing that free evolutionary consciousness into the illusion and watching it just elevate things. You know, all the people in that world have that same consciousness at their center, but they're asleep. And so by interacting with that evolutionary stimulating force, they get to start to wake up a little bit, even if it's just in the context of their work, for example. But it's not different. Being clear in how you design a study is not different than being clear in how you teach about clarity. It's just a different veneer. The energy's the same. One difference being that in the world that isn't specifically reaching for spiritual teachings, your fierceness as a teacher comes out a little more. Because people are playing lower level games. But that's great, you know? It allows you to actually step up and face that, and in doing so, not avoiding a situation that makes you feel weak, you become strong. In the story, but still. If there's a part of you that can't actually step into that, then that's a part of you that's not awake. And so the story is very useful for continuing to sort of flesh out those areas of you that are stuck that maybe you can't see. So it all becomes like this mirror where you get to see your weaknesses and your reactions. And so you just continue cleaning. But at the end of the day, all the stories lead to the same place, which is nowhere at all. There was never anywhere to go. You were always right where you were, in the only place that exists, which is just the now. But you stop layering stories over it so that you can experience it cleanly. And then if you return to the stories, you return to it empowering them in very specific ways, conscious ways. Building things and then collapsing them the second you need to. You'll find you come into certain people's lives for a specific period of time to get them from here to here in their consciousness, and then they just fall away. But by living in your being and being true to that, you just find you have that to offer the people who come into contact with you. At first you think you have to run around saving the world, but you quickly come to realize, nope, the world is working fine. It's actually a really, really effective system for waking people up. But you can be available for those people that are on the threshold, that can kind of feel what's on the other side of it and just need somebody to validate that and kind of provide just a little extra clarity and energy so that they can break through. I would say that's the closest I can get to where does the spiritual journey lead and what the destination or purpose is. I think the party line is that you are spirit and you've always been spirit. And so it's not really about what's the purpose of getting back to spirit. It's more about what was the purpose of leaving that place to have this messed up experience. And the purpose of that was to continue just kind of growing and expanding and evolving and challenging. It's just sort of a giant experiment. You know, when you step into the cause and effect universe, like Earth, it allows you to grow in ways that you can't grow if you're just in spirit. It forces you into challenges that you wouldn't end up in any other way. Not always fun, though. Let me know if that doesn't answer your question. And I'm happy to answer any other questions anyone has. If not, why don't we just step back into the silence for a little while and just sort of let that find its home. Attention at the forehead and crown. Step into this moment and just be with what's present. What you are is free. What you are is content. So if you strip away everything that isn't you, what's left is peace, power, consciousness, freshness, and a clarity that doesn't need to be entertained. So let everything else come to a stop. And you just show up for this moment. If you call off the search, stop looking for it. Stop everything. You'll find it's all right here. The only way to have something is to have it. And there is no how. Have it now. Stop searching. And notice that it's already here. Here being the only place that exists. A field of infinite possibility. Okay, everybody. So again, this week, I want you to find something that's sacred to you. And I want you to start noticing the ways that you're sabotaging it by clinging to the wrong end of the opposite. If you're pulling on it too much and it's trying to get away from you, give it its space. If there's an aspect of it that you're resisting, an experience of its opposite that you're resisting, show up and engage with the opposite. And just pay attention to how that goes. Are there any questions before we end for the night? You feel very still. All right, everyone. Thank you. I will be here next Thursday. I hope you all have a great week.
Thanks, Liam.
Thanks.